Namibia's Skeleton Coast. In April 2008, diamond miners from the De Beers Mining Company stumbled upon a 500-year-old shipwreck that was found loaded with approximately 9 million British pounds of ancient coins and gold, worth around $11 million. The vessel was called the Bom Jesus or Good Jesus, a Portuguese ship that set sail from Lisbon in the year 1533, only to vanish along with its entire crew while en route to India. The vessel was discovered when the diamond miners had to drain a man-made lake along Namibia's Skeleton Coast, which got its name for the insane amount of shipwrecks found along its shore. While the Bom Jesus wasn't the first to be found in the area, it was the oldest and the very first wreck that uncovered ivory tusks and coins. And even though this ship is fascinating in its own right, it's not exactly the most interesting wreck along the Skeleton Coast, as there are literally hundreds of decaying hulls scattered along the shoreline. Another amazing wreck that can be found here is that of the 184-foot-long SS Otavi, which is arguably one of the eeriest vessels in Namibia. It's still situated within the restricted diamond area, but its history seems to be more vague than many of the other wrecks nearby. The ship looks as though it was picked up and placed on the shore of Spencer Bay. It was a steamer that was carrying a cargo of guano, which is typically used in fertilizer, but it ran aground in 1945. Currently, it's a rusted orange-colored hulk that's slowly decaying away as the sea's salt spray eats at the ship's ironwork. Unfortunately, not much else is known about the Otavi. However, one of the Skeleton Coast ships we do have ample information on is the Dunedin Star. This was a British cargo passenger liner that weighed around 13,000 tons. It was designed to transport frozen meat from New Zealand and Australia to the UK, but it was also used as part of the war effort during World War II. On November 29, 1949, the vessel became stranded about 25 miles south of the Cunene River mouth, with a total of 106 crew members and passengers on board. 42 people managed to make it to shore, while the others were rescued from the Dunedin Star by the crew of the Temeraire, a Norwegian cargo ship. The boat, on the other hand, remained where it ran aground, and today it's nothing more than a few pieces of lumber jutting up from the sand of the Skeleton Coast. The indigenous inhabitants of Namibia, the San people, formerly known as Bushmen, called this dangerous region the land God made in anger, and it was also once referred to as the Gates of Hell by Portuguese sailors. The main thing to take away from this is that hundreds of ships have met their end along this treacherous shoreline, and these ships we discuss today only scratch the surface of the crazy amount of naval history that can be found along the Skeleton Coast. San Jose. The three-masted galleons, known as the San Jose, belonged to the Spanish Navy and was launched back in 1698. It was designed by a man named Francisco Antonio Gorot and was built by Pedro de Arostegui at the shipyard in the Guipuzcoa province. Construction on the 64-gun vessel began in 1697, and it was completed the next year. Along with the San Jose, a twin ship called the San Joaquin was created simultaneously. Both ships were part of the Spanish treasure fleet and were under the command of General José Fernández de Santia during the War of the Spanish Succession. On the San Jose's final voyage, it sailed as the flagship for the treasure fleet, which was composed of 14 merchant vessels and 3 Spanish warships sailing from Panama to Colombia. It was on June 8, 1708 that the fleet encountered a British squadron near Ilha Baru, leading to the naval confrontation known as Vargas Action. During this battle, the San Jose's powder magazines detonated, resulting in the destruction and sinking of the vessel. Unfortunately, out of the 600 passengers and crew on board, only 11 survived the devastating ordeal. When it sank, it had a cargo of silver, gold, emeralds, and precious jewelry that had been collected in the South American colonies in order to finance the Spanish king's war effort. The San Jose wreck is estimated to be worth about $17 billion, based on speculation that it was carrying up to 11 million gold coins and hundreds of silver coins when it sank. The vessel's enormous value has since earned it the nickname the Holy Grail of Shipwrecks. Many explorers have searched for the wreck for years, but it wasn't discovered until 2015, a whopping 300 years after it plunged to the bottom of the ocean. The Colombian Navy utilized a remotely operated underwater vehicle known as an ROV to examine the wreck after finding it. However, its precise location has been kept a secret in order to deter treasure hunters from swooping in and stealing the treasure for themselves. New images of the wreck were released by the Navy on June 6, 2022, and it appears to be fully coated in marine growth, which are various types of ocean species that colonize shipwrecks and substrates. But even though the San Jose has spent hundreds of years underwater, it's still remarkably intact. A Colombian Navy spokesperson made a statement claiming that coins, cannons, and gold bars can be seen sitting exposed on the seafloor, along with an amazingly preserved set of porcelain tableware. Apparently, in most cases, the preservation is so exquisite that the divers can read full inscriptions on the objects. Experts believe the ship's artifacts are in such great condition because of the depth it came to rest in, which is around 2,000 feet below sea level. While you might think they would have begun salvaging the wreck right away, there's actually a lot more that goes into it than most people are aware of. According to the Associated Press, UNESCO advised the Colombian Navy not to salvage the ship in 2018, even though the country's government has claimed the wreck and all of its treasures belong to them. However, just because they declare it's theirs doesn't necessarily mean they have exclusive rights to the ship. After all, the vessel was built by the Spanish Navy. And under international law, Spain technically still owns the San Jose and everything that it contains. Regardless though, Colombia has started to make moves with the intent to salvage the ship in the near future, despite being told not to. But for now, the San Jose wreck and its multi-billion-dollar treasure remains on the seafloor off the coast of Colombia, and so far, no physical steps have been made to recover it. Who should get the treasure? Tell us in the comments below and hit subscribe while you're at it. Egyptian boat. To most people, the Egyptians weren't all that advanced, and most of the amazing architecture that litters the desert landscape was created over hundreds of years of slave labor. However, a recent discovery from the Nile River has started to change the way that archaeologists view this ancient civilization. In late 2022, a shipwreck was found near the lost city of Thonis Heraklion, proving that the Greek historian named Herodotus was 100% correct about his observations of the Egyptian vessels that he recorded nearly 25 centuries ago. This specific type of vessel, called a baris, was described in perfect detail by Herodotus in his histories text after he made a visit to the port city of Thonis Heraklion. The ancient historian was utterly amazed by the way the Egyptian people were constructing these ships, which were used to sail across the famous Nile River thousands of years ago. For many centuries, archaeologists and scholars believe that the kind of ship Herodotus described never really existed because such vessels had never before been discovered by anyone on the planet. But this theory was debunked when a group of researchers found an amazingly well-preserved shipwreck off of Egypt's coast in the canopic mouth of the Nile, located near the Mediterranean Sea. What archaeologists discovered when they dove into the water was the exact type of ship that Herodotus had described nearly 2,500 years ago in his book. It was 92 feet long and was once used by the Egyptians to trade with other civilizations in ancient times. According to Dr. Damien Robinson from Oxford University, this vessel marks a completely unique form of ship construction that's since been lost to history. This rare method of construction was likely the reason Herodotus was so fascinated when he witnessed the Egyptians building these ships all those years ago. He wrote his text, Histories, around 430 BC, meaning the ancient people of Egypt were already creating these vessels before he recorded them. So, based on this fact, it would mean that these baris ships are some of the oldest boats ever created on Earth. Pamphilos. In 2016, divers found an exceptionally well-preserved human skeleton inside the 2,100-year-old shipwreck where the ancient Antikythera mechanism, which is considered the oldest analog computer in existence, was discovered. The shipwreck belongs to a 131-foot Roman merchant vessel that capsized sometime in the 1st century BC. Archaeologists believe it was destroyed after it collided with the cliffs off the island of Antikythera, after which it was named. The ship's debris field was found in 1900 at a depth of 180 feet below the waves, and it quickly gained notoriety for its cargo of luxury goods, which were likely intended for wealthy Roman buyers. And although numerous artifacts have been recovered from the wreck since its discovery, the most amazing find was the anachronistic clockwork mechanism, otherwise known as the Antikythera mechanism. This technologically advanced device seems to have survived from classical antiquity and contains dozens of gears made of bronze that are designed to track the cycles of the moon, sun, solar eclipses, the planets in our solar system, and even the ancient Olympic Games. And while this is a fascinating discovery, the newest find from the vessel turned up one of the shipwreck's ill-fated victims from their watery grave, which is something that's extremely rare to find in an ancient underwater wreck. Most bodies get consumed by ocean life or get washed away by strong currents before researchers have the chance to obtain them. But this individual was found under 1.6 feet of sand deposits and broken pottery. This left much of the skeleton intact, including 2 femurs, 2 arm bones, a partial skull containing teeth, and several ribs. According to Brendan Foley, the co-director of the Antikythera excavation team, the wrecking of the ship was so violent that passengers on board became trapped below decks. The skeleton they recovered dates back 2,000 years, and if the team is successfully able to extract DNA from the bones, it would be the first ever DNA evidence retrieved from an ancient sunken boat. But for now, while further research is completed, the body has been nicknamed Pamphilos, after a name that was found etched into a wine glass that was recovered from the shipwreck. Yangtze River Shipwreck. The remains of a shipwreck in China's Yangtze River estuary have finally been salvaged after over a century, providing archaeologists with a peek at the ancient vessel and adding to the country's treasure of cultural relics that have been unearthed over the years. Without a proper name for the ship, it's known as Yangtze River Estuary No. 2 Ancient Vessel. A mouthful, we know. According to a domestic media report, it was brought to the surface in November 2022 in an area close to Shanghai's Hengsha Island. The ship is believed to have been underwater for around 150 years, and archaeologists think it's the best preserved and largest of its kind in China. In 2015, the wooden vessel was first detected at a depth of 18 feet, but it wasn't until 2022 that a high-tech salvage project was launched in order to learn more about the ship. Upon further investigation, researchers found its main structure measuring 125 feet long and 32.5 feet wide at its broadest section. It also reportedly had 31 cabins that were found largely intact. Numerous other cultural relics have also been discovered near the shipwreck. Among these artifacts were amazingly preserved porcelain, hookah pots that were made in Vietnam, and purple claywares. The underwater survey proved that the vessel dated between 1862 and 1875, back when the region was ruled by the Tongzi Emperor from the Qing dynasty. They also found that it likely served as a flat-bottom barge, which was widely used for transporting and trade via water during the period. Further research on the vessel is slated to begin after it's been moved to a dock in the city's Yangpu district. And at some point in the near future, the city plans to convert the site into a shipwreck museum as part of a 5-year plan to protect and utilize cultural relics. Thanks for watching. Which of these shipwrecks did you find the most interesting? Tell us in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you next time. Bye.